Are you getting some good info? We're going to quiz you.
There's a test at the end of the day.
So hopefully you're getting some good information from this. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it. Moving on to the next phase.
Okay, we're going to start talking about writing the script. I don't even know that all directors do this, to be honest, but we find it's really beneficial. It's a great way of organizing your thoughts and sort of making a story. Not all shows have a story, but we really like to have some sort of thread or storyline or theme to our shows. It just makes it feel more thought out instead of just 20 songs, you know, and listen to a record for that. So we really like to try to find some sort of thought or theme to have during the show, which is why we tend to write a script.
It also helps communicate the ideas to each department, you know, so when the departments are in their areas working in their smaller groups, sometimes in a completely different country, you know, it helps for everybody to have a central point of reference that has all of the ideas, so you know ultimately what the goals for the show are.
Like we mentioned before, sometimes the artist will give you the theme or tell you what message they want to portray. Sometimes it's up to you to figure it out. So oftentimes Travis and I will listen to the music, or you'll get a vibe from the artist, you know, if they're really rock and roll, or if they're more country, or if they're more pop. That will help you to decipher which direction to go in. But generally, once you have that knowledge, which you got from the first initial meeting, you want to break up the show into sections. It just makes it easier for you to tackle.
This will make sense to you theater people. So
Yes.
you have your different acts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
So sections or acts, whatever you may call them. The audience may not even know their sections, their separate sections, but usually when we do it, each section has a different look, a different tone, a different wardrobe. So the set design, you know, we like to really make each section kind of a different thing. So you want to divide your show into sections. 3, 4, 5, it just depends on the length of your show and what you're working with.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this leads me to actually showing you the script. This is the actual script for Jolyn. It's a little more, has more explanation in it. So all departments will get both. Okay? Everybody gets a copy. So everybody has knowledge. Does that answer your question? Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the script. Let's just take a look through this. At the top, we always put the date because there'll be, I don't even know which, you know, version this is. There'll be 20 different revisions because we keep adding and changing and adjusting transitions and moving songs, and you know, it just continues to change. So always put the date so people know that they're working with the latest script. So can you read this? Okay, I'm just going to be quiet for 3 minutes and just start reading it so you can kind of get a sense for the descriptions, and then we'll take any questions. This is just the first song. I think
Yeah, first song.
it completes the first song. Okay.
Yeah, first one. And, you know, you'll see again that every department is listed and any special needs that they may need to know.
So we've got set, props, video, lighting, pyro, wardrobe, dancers, cast, choreography. Okay?
Thank you.
Now, every department's listed that is involved in this number. If for some reason we don't have pyro in this number, there would be no section for pyro, okay? But just take a minute, we'll be quiet, and just read through it so you get an idea of how it's explained. Here's another thing that's sticking out. You know, you want to, in your script, also kind of mention where the artist is going to talk a little bit. You don't want them talking between every number. It's way too much. But, you know, maybe once per section, just a little talk to the audience. I think that they they like to talk here more than they do in the States. Do you think? The artists talk a lot here, we find.
See, that's one of the times you'll see where there was an idea that we thought was awesome and would work in the section, but for logistical reasons and practical reasons, we had to get rid of it. We were very excited about our big seahorse thing, that we were going to have a ginormous seahorse for her to ride on. But yeah, but it didn't make sense, and also because of safety and you know, being in the audience on a vehicle wasn't thought to be the safest idea.
This was an idea, this was a circumstance where we had a lot of ballads in one section, and we kind of, you know, ballads don't call for dance or even a lot of production value, so we were trying to think outside of the box and figure out something that would be interesting that she could do and keep the show moving, so you know, 3 or 4 ballads in a row wouldn't get boring. So that was kind of the idea we came up with, which ended up changing, but that's okay. So after we've, you know, had our initial meeting with the artist and written the script and hired our team and all that stuff, then that's when we began to meet with each team individually to answer any questions they might have and to, you know, also explain to them what we need from them. So one of the first things you want to do is have a budget meeting with your producers and your production manager and coordinator. Basically, you're going to have a meeting with the people that give you the money. Okay, and you need to find out how much money you can spend so you know what you can do. The budget is really what tells you what you're allowed to do. So many things come down to budget. So, of course, the bigger the budget, the more video you can have, the more pyro you can have, the better costumes you can have. It's common sense. All right, so basically that is the first thing you need to do. Talk with the producers, figure out the amount of money you can spend, and then you can move forward. Now, a lot of times you're not going to have to worry about putting together a whole budget. A lot of times, Travis
line
and I,
producer.
yeah, and Travis and I will just kind of write the script and tell them what we want to do. Then the producers will either say, yes, you can do it, or no, you can't. Okay, but if you're lucky enough to kind of be a part of the budget or know how much there is to spend, it makes it easier so you know, okay, that's too expensive, we shouldn't do that, or this is, you know,
Worth it.
yeah, you know, so it helps you to figure out how much to spend. We've got is it working yet?
They're working on it now.
Okay, we're gonna show you, as soon as we get the screen up and working, we're gonna show you kind of an example of what a budget looks like. But again, 9 times out of 10, you're not the one that's gonna have to make up this budget or write it out. Okay, that'll be a line producer.
But it definitely helps for you to be knowledgeable of the points in the budget. You know, you can see where more of the money is being spent, where it's necessary, and then you can balance that with, you know, sort of what you want versus what you really need to execute the show. And then that helps you figure out, you know, how to prioritize and spend your money. And it's definitely an art to it, but if you get a great line producer, that person who keeps track of the budget and reminds you of the amount of money you're spending, if you're very close with that person and open to what's possible, it's usually much better.
You can also help dictate what is spent on certain things. For instance, when Travis and I worked with Jolynn last year, we knew we wanted to hire as many choreographers from Los Angeles as we could. So we kind of made a proposal, because we know how much stuff like that can cost. So we kind of did our own math and made our own small budget for choreography and said, okay, we're going to pay each choreographer this much money per number, and it'll take this many days. This is how much the dance studio is going to cost. So you might be a part of some of the budgeting, but as far as the overall budget, usually that will come from the production side, the producers.
So this This budget that we're showing you now was for a project we created for John Zacata, who's a singer, a Latin American singer. And this was for a show that he was doing for Las Vegas. So what we did was sort of break down the amount for each sort of section of the show that we would need. And then we can go through that with the team and decide, you know, what are the important things and what things we need to eliminate.
One important thing to remember is, you see number 1, it says this budget is a first pass and is an estimate based on industry standards. It's important to kind of clarify that your budget is always a work in progress, and it is just an estimate because things change. So, you know, secretly in your back pocket, you always want to keep a reserve fund. Meaning, say you get $1 million to spend. Maybe $100,000 you want to keep hidden because emergencies will happen, last minute things will happen. The day before the show, you'll want to put something new in, and then you've got that money. Okay? So, important to remember, it's an estimate only. So creatives are people like us, choreographers, and so forth, wardrobe, you know.
Music.
So creatives are the creative team, everybody that kind of comes with the directors.
Correct.
And under the directors.
So you'll see that these were estimated totals of each department that we knew at this time, right? And so, of course, these numbers could fluctuate based on what is actually needed, but this is just where we started so the conversations could begin with the producers. And in our mind, these were the things that were absolutely necessary. Of course, you have the creatives. Of course, you have to have production design, costume, lighting, sound, your cast, hair and makeup, other personnel. You have to have rehearsal space prior to going into your venue. Rehearsal needs, that would be, you know, if we have to feed the cast or if we have to provide transportation for anyone. Your insurance, it's always recommended. Some jobs won't require insurance, but it's just best if you can, just for the obvious reasons.
Especially if travel's involved, and in this case, travel was involved.
And then a contingency. Basically, this was our padding, you know, so this money would be contingent on whether we need it or not. It could go back into the budget and not be spent, but this was just set aside, like Stacy was saying, for any unforeseen issues that may come up during production. Because we were also filming this project, there's a budget for the filming crew, and you'll see where we have the totals here. This is a more extensive breakdown of the fees paid for this particular job.
We can break down travel and per diem and all that as well.
This budget, of course, once we mentioned the things that we needed, our line producer put it into this type of chart so that it's very easy for everyone involved to read and understand. It even breaks down each of the musicians needed, how they're paid, how they're traveled.
That's another thing, once you have your budget, you also need to discuss how things will be paid. Sometimes you want to be paid 50% upfront and then 50% upon completion of the work. Sometimes you're paid weekly, depending on if the job is long or not. If you've never worked with a client before, it's important that you try to get some money upfront. because in this business, sometimes people just don't pay you. Yes, some of you might know, I hope that you don't, but, you know, so especially if you're working with a client for the first time, you might want to say, I need 50% up front, and then from there on out, you know, then 25%, then 25%, whatever you're comfortable with, but protect yourself, because, especially with someone new. Once you've got a good, you know, rapport with somebody, or good relationship with somebody, then you can be more trusting and, you know.
But it's
protect
okay.
yourself.
You know, it's industry standard to request what's known as a deposit for you to initiate your work and start to exchange ideas. Not a problem to ask for it.
So you see how many people are involved in putting a show together, and this was a fairly smaller scale,
Yeah.
more theatrical show. It wasn't a big, huge pop concert. So many people are involved, and it's very confusing to figure out how much money you need. So it's important to break it down.